In every age, every prophet used to predict about a big prophet among the coming prophets, and particularly about the one who was likely to face the hardest opposition. They said he will be the greatest of all the prophets, yet he will suffer the worst treatment from his own kith and kin. In order to understand these predictions, we need to analyze the history of religions. And when we do so, we find that the victims of the severest criticism and opposition were only those prophets who brought the divine statute. We see that in Samnite prophets from Adam to Abraham there appears to be no strife. From Abraham to Moses, there is a chain of worldly disputes and collisions between the divine and devised religions. But this is not the case among the revealed religions. All the prophets, even before Abraham, predicted the arrival of an international leader and side by side told about the appointment of selected prophets. So much so that if you study the Bible, the Quran and the Gurbani carefully, you will find that there is always mention of the coming of an international leader after Prophet Isa, son of Maryam, who will pave the path of humanity towards perfection. The same has been mentioned about the coming of a universal leader in other scriptures also. But in spite of all the predictions, there is not a trace of the personality of the international prophet. Why is it so? Why did the people fail to recognize him? Why was he opposed so severely? What were the signs of his coming? And why is he still delayed? Today, we shall try to answer all these questions. First of all, let's look into how it all started. Do you know what was the first prediction ever made by a prophet? The first man created on earth, Hazrat Adam, peace be upon him, predicted the advent of a prophet after him, who will be the leader of entire humanity. The same was predicted by many prophets afterwards, like Prophet Ibrahim, Isha Yaqub, Yusuf and Harun. But from Musa onwards, the tone changed. Every prophet, while predicting the advent of the international leader, also talked about the appointment of a selected prophet. After me, Allah Almighty chose Musa to take my mission forward. Musa, peace be upon him, predicted the advent of a great prophet after him in the same way. And this chain continued till Prophet Isa, son of Maryam. Whenever a prophet predicted the advent of the international leader, he also talked about the appointment of a select prophet after him. That's how the tradition went on for thousands of years. The confusion arose from the point that followers of the predicting prophets assimilated the qualities of the international leader and the forthcoming prophets, and thus confused two different personalities as one. This was the main cause that every divine guide had to face opposition, because whenever a new guide would come, people wanted all the qualities that were predicted about the international leader from him. They did not accept him as a select prophet, which resulted in severe opposition for him, and sometimes even martyrdom. For example, it was well known among the masses that sons of Israel will be subjected to tyranny in the land of Egypt, and a deliverer will come, who will take them out of the land of Egypt, and settle them in the promised land, the land of Canaan. This was the first prediction. Another prophecy was that in the last age, total humanity will undergo cruelty and barbarism, and a universal leader will arrange their deliverance. His reign will be a reign of perfect peace. The earth will unveil all the treasures therein, etc., etc. Both the prophecies were mingled, and the people demanded all the qualities of both from one prophet. Since it was not possible, eventually their prophethood was called the question. The concept of the international leader in the last age was current among the Pharaoh of Egypt. The norm for his recognition was, he will be a repository of heavenly and earthly powers. 2. That he will make everybody rich with silver and gold. So when Musa came, he fulfilled the first norm, because he took Bani Israel out of the land of Egypt and settled them in the promised land. But he could not fulfill the second norm, because Bani Israel were not as powerful as the other nations in terms of wealth. Then came Prophet Isa, son of Mary, who also fulfilled the first norm, but not the second. Thus, both these norms actually belonged to the international prophet, who according to predictions should have appeared after Prophet Isa, but unfortunately, the followers of Prophet Isa mingled both of them in him, and demanded that Isa should fulfill all the norms at once. Since he did not do so, they killed him. In short, the opposition against the prophets of Allah Almighty can be divided into two categories. In the first category are those prophets who were opposed because they brought the divine statute, like the persecution of Ahmadiyya, by the people of Mecca and Medina. In the second category are those prophets who were opposed because they were supposed to bring revolution in the world, but in reality, they were not supposed to change the course of history, like Prophet Suleiman, peace be upon him. Let's divide the second category further. Some of the prophets were opposed because they asked people to believe in the prophethood of another prophet, like the opposition against Prophet Musa bin Ismail, peace be upon him, by the people of Madian, because he wanted them to believe in Prophet Harun. Similarly, when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came to Medina, the Jews opposed him because he asked them to believe in his prophethood, whereas they themselves believed in the prophethood of Prophet Isa. Some prophets faced opposition because their teachings were contrary to the teachings of the previous prophets, like Prophet Nuh, peace be upon him. And some prophets faced opposition because they were unlettered, like our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Apart from all these causes, there is a very important point that needs to be highlighted here. In the beginning of each dispensation, people ask for miracles. In order to believe in a prophet, they demand that he part the seas or walk over them. They demand that he feed thousands of people with a few loaves of bread and fish, that he turn water into wine, and so on. Only when they witness these miracles do they believe in the prophethood of the person concerned. Miracles are essential in the beginning of each dispensation, because people are steeped in evil ways, and unless a strong impression is made on their hearts, they won't even think that this person is a prophet of God. That's why our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, performed the miracle of splitting the moon in two halves. Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, burnt the idols. Prophet Musa parted the seas, and so on. But in the later periods, when people become somewhat reformed, they stop asking for miracles. Instead, they start looking for the qualities of prophets in trivial matters. In such a time, prophets are recognized by their trivial qualities, and not by their major ones. At times, people go to such extremes that if a person claims to be a prophet, they begin to look for faults in him. That is to say, they are waiting for a chance to oppose him. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says, "A time will come in the latter days when the true proof of prophethood will disappear, and people will follow the example of those who lived in ancient times." A person claiming to be a prophet will be accepted as a prophet on the basis of his trivial qualities. Now, what are these trivial qualities? The Hadith does not explain, but what it indicates is that if someone makes a claim in the name of prophethood, people will look for chances to prove him false. And the place to look for was the conduct of the claimant. Some may argue that since people are wicked by nature and have no capacity to accept the truth, how could they ever accept a true prophet? And that's where the argument of miracles comes in. If a person claims to be a prophet, he must display something extraordinary to prove his claim. In response, it can be said that the miracles that are meant to establish the prophethood of a person cannot be the same every time. The means and methods may be different. Sometimes it is a staff that is thrown down, and sometimes it is a staff that parts the sea. Sometimes it is a piece of string that goes up in smoke, and sometimes it is a stone that bears witness. Sometimes it is a hand that bleeds, and sometimes it is blood that stops. There are countless miracles and ways to perform them. Miracles serve as proof in the beginning of each dispensation, but they are not essential in the later periods. People have been endowed with the faculty of reasoning, which enables them to discern truth from falsehood. Therefore, in the later periods, they can judge by themselves. In the light of the above discussion, now let us answer some of the questions that were posed earlier. Why did the people fail to recognize the international prophet? Because they mixed him up with the select prophet. Why was he opposed so severely? Because they expected everything from him. What were the signs of his coming? He will be a repository of heavenly and earthly powers. He will make everybody rich, with silver and gold. Why is he still delayed? Maybe the time is not yet ripe for his coming. Or maybe people have not yet reached the level of prophethood. This is because if people had reached that level, they would not have asked for a universal leader. Rather, they would have asked for a universal reformer. To conclude, I would like to say that if we look into the conduct of the past prophets, we will realize that they faced opposition, not because they were unlettered, but because they brought revolution. History bears witness that most of the prophets were unlettered, but none faced opposition because of that. Rather, they were opposed because they brought about revolution, because they asked people to leave darkness and come to light, because they asked people to abandon sin and come to righteousness. Yes, the road to righteousness is beset with thorns, and every reformer has to face opposition. Whoever wishes to bring about reform in the world must brace himself for opposition. Thank you for listening. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you.